loud. Okay. Now, Veronica, you can answer your question that was asked.
Okay.
Of Sydney. Tell us a little bit of the background.
Sydney, would you like to ask the question again?
Yes, now that we're recording. So I just was wondering what's made you go into this topic, because there's 5,000 things that you can talk about. And especially since this is your first Zoom class, like what's made you go down this avenue of ADD and ADHD with oils?
Because it's so big and so deep, right? Yeah. So I have 5 children. My oldest is 16. My second oldest is 15. My daughter is going to be 14 soon. And I have an 11-year-old and a 6-year-old. My 15-year-old, Jakey, his name's Jacob. I didn't know I was pregnant with him until I was about 3 weeks out from my second trimester. I was still nursing my oldest. And everyone was like, I think you're pregnant. And I was like, I think you're insane. So we found out I was pregnant. The whole pregnancy was not like my first pregnancy at all. It was like night and day difference. So I was like, oh, maybe it's a girl, because, you know, when you have a different pregnancy, everything is different. So you think it's the opposite gender. Long story short, I started bleeding pretty heavily in my second trimester, and they put me on bed rest. Somehow they missed that I was pregnant with twins, and I was miscarrying the twin at that time. And from my own personal research, everything that I've done, I believe there was some trauma that happened. But I was able to keep him inside. When I went into labor, my water broke, but it wasn't his water. It was the twin. The twin had just absorbed in its sac. It had just absorbed. So that's the water that broke. I went into labor. He was my fastest labor. He was my fastest delivery. I was the most calm for that one. I was like laughing during the whole, I was like, I don't know why I thought it was hilarious, but I thought it was so funny. And I just like laughed him right out. He was about 10 days overdue. So I was pretty much done being pregnant. But the very first ultrasound that we had of Jacob, he was, and anyone that's been pregnant and had ultrasounds, the baby's just kind of just there. He literally, and I wish I had cell phones back then so I could have recorded this. He literally was bouncing off the walls of my uterus. He would not stop moving. I had to go in for another ultrasound because he was moving so much. They could not get him to hold still. And he was like, I was like 14, 15, 16 weeks pregnant at that point. So, but the technician was like, I don't know why he's moving so much. So then he was born. I remember, and my mom's on the call. I don't know if she remembers this call. I called her bawling my eyes out because my oldest woke up every 2 hours around the clock wanting to eat. He would sleep for like 8 hours at a time. I was like, Mommy's gonna die. He's sleeping too much. And she goes, maybe he's tired. And I was like, oh, okay. So, and I just like, I pumped with him. He was the one I had to pump with the most because he would not latch on. He was constantly looking around. But he would never make eye contact with me from the get-go. From the moment he was born, he would never make eye contact with me. It was a few years later that we realized that he was on the spectrum. I figured I had no experience really with autism, so I didn't really know that that's what I was raising and looking at, because a lot of people were like, maybe he has ADD or ADHD, because he was like Spider-Man. He like climbed walls. There was one time we lived in a townhouse and he would go up the stairs and crawl through the railing and sit on top of our entertainment center, and he would just sit there reading a book, playing with his cars. And I would just like have heart attack after heart attack because he's this little tiny 1-year-old. And I'm like, you're going to kill yourself. So he was so active all the time. So I just thought, I was like, he's a boy. Boys are active, right? So, and I was just like, it's fine. And so then kindergarten was coming and I was like, we probably should like talk to someone because the teacher's probably just going to call me complaining. But another thing was at that point, he was nonverbal. He didn't talk at all. His way of communication was talking like a dinosaur. He would growl and roar at everybody. And if I knew what I know now, I would have done things 100% differently. I would have homeschooled him because we sent him to kindergarten and he was barely talking. He was barely saying sentences, and he was he still is, but so smart at that point, even going into kindergarten, that he tested out of any special education program in California at that time. But California is terrible with their education system. And I apologize if anyone lives in California, but I don't love it. But he tested out of everything. So they stuck him in a regular class and they're like, well, maybe he needs a little bit of speech therapy. But I remember sitting in a class, we had gone through months and months and months of testing. And finally the doctor sat across from me and my husband, and she was like, he has ADHD, but he's also autistic, but he's very high functioning. And she sat there as I was bawling my eyes out, and she's like, he will never hold a job. He will never be married. He will never be able to have a relationship. He'll never be able to communicate with you. She told me all these things that my child was not going to be able to do. And I went home and I was like, I'm so sorry, but I was like, bullshit. I was like, this is going to be the last thing that anybody tells me, that my child can't do something. From the get-go, from the time that he was recognizing that other children were like, what's wrong with you? You're so weird. We told him, we're like, nothing is wrong with you. You just see the world in a different way. You just see the world. You look at things differently. Things are different
And then this morning
for you. When he was about, I can't remember when the show came out, but he was like obviously verbal, preteen age, but there's a show and I cannot remember the name of it, but he's like a doctor and he's autistic. I know after I get off the Zoom call, I'll remember the name, but it was a show that,
doctor.
yes, I think that's it. So he was watching a few episodes with me, and he's like, and they're showing like his brain, like how he like figures things out. And he goes, Mom, that's how I see things. He goes, everything is in puzzles and letters and numbers to me. Everything. He goes, I look at everything and it's like a math problem. And I was like, oh, well, that's good to know. So, but that's how he just sees things. He's insanely smart. And I will tell you right now, he's on his second job. He's 15 years old. He works at a trampoline park here, where in the town that we live here in Utah. He constantly has girls calling him and texting him. He's going to a football game tonight because 3 girls were like, so are you going to the football game? Because I really want to see you. So like, if I ever do anything in my life, it would be to go look at that doctor in the eye and say, you're wrong, which I would love to tell a lot of doctors, but that's a whole different subject. So, but she sat there and she told me that my 3.5-year-old needed to be put on all of these series of drugs. And I looked at her and I said, are you kidding me? And she's like, no, they're all safe. And I'm like, drugs and safe don't go in the same sentence when you're giving it to a 3-year-old at all, like ever. And so I didn't know about essential oils then. it wasn't actually for another like year or so that I even tried him, because my husband was like, why would you put an oil on a kid? Why would you put an oil on yourself? And let me tell you, he takes them and puts them on all the time now. So he's a believer now, but at first he was like, why would you do that? He agreed with me that we shouldn't put him on medication. And in California, the special education system back then was horrible. And they wouldn't give him any resources past speech, which was barely helpful at all. And I just went to our computer and the internet, and I did as much research as I could on autism. And I did as much research as I could on ADHD and ADD. And most of my siblings have ADD and ADHD. So I talked to my mom about it, and I was like, I don't know what to do, but I knew that I noticed that there were things that were making his outbursts and everything worse. We cut out so many things. We cut out red dye. We basically cut out all food color dye. Like if it was colored, we didn't eat it. That's when I started learning how to cook from scratch. I tried to give him as much healthy food as I could. When he was younger, he would eat pretty much anything. So, but he was born with eczema, which isn't really normal either. So, and I just researched a lot. But then when I did find oils, I found a lot of oils that were actually really helpful for him that I'll talk about. But Sid, do you want to go to the first slide? Or the second slide?
I am so flattered that you got me and Whitley mixed up carefully. Like I am so flattered.
Okay, and I just want to say really quick that like Victoria, like you are like Veronica, you're like a wealth of knowledge right now. This was like, how old's your son? 15, 16? So
he'll be
was
16 in March.
Back when ADD and ADHD was like this weird stigma, like, oh, your kid has ADD and ADHD, they're not normal. And nowadays, like 15 years later, we have so many adults and mothers being like, I have ADD. How do I help myself? And I remember growing up, my brother had ADD and ADHD, and teachers just looked at them differently. Teachers didn't love them the same way because they were obnoxious and hard and difficult. And so I just love that this is coming from a mother who is an advocate for their child. Like we heard multiple times that she's like, oh no, my child will not do that. And my child will not do that. And essential oils are the tools to help us advocate for our kids. And so this needs to be shouted from like every single rooftop, because essential oils, more than just ADD and ADHD, like any sort of solution or problem that you have that needs a solution, dōTERRA probably has an oil for it. So I'm really excited to learn from Veronica today, because I just think that you're an awesome advocate for your kids and a better advocate for dōTERRA. So I will go to the first slide.
Thank you.
There we go.
So a lot of people, when you say ADD or ADHD, they just think people just like can't talk, like they're just like all over the place all the time. So, but it's actually a lot more than that. It's, they're both chronic conditions, and the biggest one is attention difficulty. And then the H is for hyperactivity, and a lot of times they're super impulsive. So if they have a thought, they just say it. They don't think, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that. You know, they just are just like, my daughter has ADHD. And a lot of times I'm like, Natalie Rose. And she's like, oh, sorry, I shouldn't have said that. So, but a lot of signs in children and in adults is aggression, which is what one of the signs that we saw in my son was. He was super aggressive towards us, towards other children. And then irritability is one, because especially in children that are small, that have it, that can't always communicate what they need, they get irritated really fast. And then we get irritated because they're frustrated and we don't know why. the lack of restraint. They get excited really easily. Everything they're excited about, everything all the time. My son will come home and he is like super into film and cinema right now. And he just joined the film club and he's in 10th grade, and his teacher just put him in charge of the whole group, which was like a huge deal because usually you don't do that till you're a senior. And so everything is like exciting, and everything is, I have to tell you right this second, and it can't wait. So trying to teach him like, okay, I was talking to your dad, like just repeat it in your head. I'm almost 10 seconds. That's all I need. Okay. And then fidgeting, a lot of fidgeting. I had to used to give when fidget spinners came out, those were amazing, but he's kind of over that now. But my daughter, she'll color a lot. I've tried to get her into like crocheting or knitting, and she's like, her brain can't handle that, because that's what helps, like just being busy with your hands, doing something with your hands, like especially like if you're watching a movie or something, and repetitiveness, repeating what they say all the time. My son does that, and so does my daughter. They do that a lot because sometimes in their brains, they think that they've thought it, but they haven't said it out loud. So I've just taught them to say, did I tell you this? So it's not them telling me over and over and over again. And then I'll just say, you did mention that. My oldest is 16, and he was just diagnosed with ADD. He is the quietest, calmest child. He's just like, whatever, mom, that's fine, all the time. He's just super calm all the time. And then my other two have the hyperactivity. So he actually was just diagnosed with ADD. We actually didn't really know until last year. He failed a core class and had to make it up over summer. So then I was like doing some digging and talking to the teachers, and they're like, oh, well, he just like falls asleep in class, and he's always on his phone and he's not paying attention. So this year, before school started, I went into the psychologist's office. I was like, he needs to have a 504 plan. And he's like, well, I don't know. I was like, no, you're just going to give it to him because that's what he needs. And so he has a pass where he can just stand up. It's a 3 to 5 minute pass. So it gives him enough time to go to the bathroom or go to the back of the room, get a drink of water. He can stand up and stretch if he feels like he's falling asleep. And he told me that it's helping him a lot this year. So those are some things that are how, even if you find it with yourself, that's like a problem, like you're feeling like fidgety or something, just like even if you're like at dinner, just like stand up. When we go out to dinner, they do it all the time. And a lot of times we try to find, like, there's a place here called Pizza Pie Cafe that we take the kids, because it's a buffet style and he can get up and go get more food, and we're not making him sit down at a table and be respectful and be polite and don't yell and scream, because he has to. And a lot of times I read somewhere, and I don't remember where it was, but I read little kids yell and shout and make noises because, their soul they have such a big soul in this little tiny body, and they have to just sometimes they just have to laugh and scream and yell and be super excited. And that's why I have a huge basement where I send them all, because sometimes I'm like, I cannot handle your excited soul right now. So, but can we go to the next slide, Whit? So some things that I have found is there's a difference between the cognitive in their brains and their moods, but they coexist together, obviously. So a lot of things is also, if any of you struggle with ADD or ADHD, is absent-minded. You forget things unless you write it down or put a reminder in your phone that has an alarm that goes off, you will forget about it. Difficulty focusing is, a common one. Forgetfulness, which goes with the absent-mindedness, and then the short attention span. And then along with those is your mood. So you can feel anger, anxiety, boredom, mood swings, and depression. So my older two have suffered from anxiety and depression pretty bad. My oldest sees a therapist pretty regularly for it. But he just like, and my oldest was, a lot of times when you hear people are going to therapy, it's because stuff's at home is hard. And when we sat down and talked to him about it, he's like, I feel safe at home. It's nothing at home, it's school. But we're playing like this like leveling game because he doesn't do well being homeschooled. It's worse for him. He wants to be around those friends, but being able to find those friends that balanced him and brought out the good in him and were getting him to where a goal that he's trying to reach was a little bit hard of it was like tipping the scale a little bit. But now that he's got some good friends and everything, his depression's gone down, but the anxiety with, what teachers expect and their grades and the amount of work that they have, it's hard. So I do have some things that I do. I have a roller that my kids use that I've put peppermint and wild orange in. And if anyone's followed Sid or Whitley or Kelsey or me or Eden, any of us, we talk about wild orange and pepper in the diffuser all the time, that it's great for focus, that it's great to wake you up in the morning. I will roll peppermint and wild orange like right here on my neck and my chest. I put it in a roller for them and they roll it in their hands and they just breathe it in. And it just helps them so much. My daughter keeps one in her backpack because she can't take a diffuser and stick it on her desk to school. I mean, that would be so freaking amazing if we could do that, but teachers would really probably not love that. So I have that blend in a roller all the time. And then I often, especially Saturday mornings when we are doing Saturday morning chores, I put that in all the diffusers because I'm like, it is time to get up and clean this mess. So, the InTune, Serenity are amazing for anxiety and calming down that anger. And so is the Adaptive. My daughter, I will find her come up and she will be grabbing the Adaptive. She's like, Mom, whatever that blue one is, I need it. So, and it'll just like really like, it lowers that stress hormone and just really helps you. I take the Adaptive capsules for my anxiety and depression, and they are like night and day for me. I personally cannot take antidepressants. They make me, funny story, they make me more suicidal. So I can't take them at all. It's just my body chemistry with with those kind of synthetic medications. So that's where essential oils have literally saved my life. Motivate and Thinker. I have a roller of Thinker that I will use on my kids as well. Some of them don't love the smell of it, but I'm just like, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. Put it on your feet. You're fine.
I love Motivate. It smells amazing.
I think it smells great too. And I tell my kids all the time because I don't remember who it was that said it, but they're like, if you don't like the smell of an oil, your body must need it. So that's just what I tell my kids. I was like, I guess you really need it.
Can I say something really quick? I was listening to a podcast this morning because I felt so inadequate of being like a co-host here with Veronica because I don't know a lot about ADD and ADHD, but I love that there's so many tools out there that we can, like Veronica has said, she like goes to the internet and you find resources, right? You obviously want to make sure that they're credible. But I was listening to this podcast, and if you're interested, I can totally send it to you. But this woman talks about two women actually. One of them works with dōTERRA. The other one just has ADD and ADHD. And she is like a businesswoman and has this podcast. And the girl who has ADD that works with dōTERRA, she actually takes Serenity in the capsules for her anxiousness, and even just overwhelm, or I can't remember the other word she said, but anyway, Serenity capsules, we all think we take it to sleep, right? Because it's the restful blend. And she's like, people are afraid because it's a restful blend that it's going to put them to sleep. She's like, but someone like me with ADD and ADHD, Serenity helped calm her down. And she shared her experience with that. And I thought it was really cool. And so they're just having this conversation back and forth. And I just wanted to mention that, like Veronica said, she takes the Adaptive capsules. And so if you've been on antidepressants or any sort of medication and you take something one time with dōTERRA, or you try one oil one time and it doesn't work for you, try it again. Just because you tried it one time doesn't mean it doesn't work, right? Like, do you remember the first time you've ever taken like your prescription maybe, and you're like, oh, this isn't working, you didn't notice a difference? When you do something one time, it's really hard to tell the difference of whether or not it's working. So try it again, but also keep in mind that sometimes some oils don't work as well on other people's bodies. Like patchouli loves Sydney so much, but patchouli hates me. So we don't like hang out together, right? So I reach for another oil while Sid will reach for patchouli. Same thing with these with these solutions. So let's say you don't like peppermint. I have a friend who's like, I hate peppermint, I would rather die. But she also has anxiety and feels really anxious sometimes. And so peppermint would be something that she wouldn't want to reach for. Maybe she would want to grab like a bergamot or wild orange or lavender, like a different one. So I love that there's so many different options that you could reach for instead of this worked for Veronica, it has to work for me. There's always another solution.
Yes, there is. I'm waiting for my LRP order to come today because I bought a bottle of Serenity. My daughter actually she was going through the dōTERRA website. She's like, Mom, what kind of stuff do they have? And so I mentioned to her that I wanted her to try the Serenity. And she's like, what's it do? And I was like, I know a lot of people, it helps them sleep. I know some people it just calms them down. She goes, yeah, get me like 8 bottles. And I was like, let's try one and go from there. So
It smells beautiful. I love it.
So
do you want me to go to the next slide?
Yeah.
Okay. Next one. This one.
I'm not sure. Let me see.
All right. Yes.
Oh yeah, it's the one with, yeah, that one.
This
No,
one.
yeah, this one. Yeah. So the best thing that I love about oils and the supplements is that there's no side effects. They're all plant-based. They're safe, to diffuse for pets, for kids, for adults. They're there and they help your whole body. It's when you take a medicine, a lot of times they're like, oh, well, it'll just like help this, but then it ends up with, like, when you take an antibiotic, it helps you get better, but then a lot of times you have other side effects from it, like a yeast infection, or your gut health is bothered. So that's what I really love about the oils and the supplements, is that there are no side effects. When I tried a different homeopathic for my from a Whole Foods store, a local one here, it took weeks for it to even like seem to try. And when I started taking adaptive, it was 4 days. Within 4 days, my husband was like, there you are. There's my wife. Where have you been? So, and it was 4 days. And he was like, I don't care what it costs. And I don't care how much it is. You will always take this. You will always take it. So, and then that's just how I've felt about essential oils too with my kids, because it helped them. Can you go to the next one where I start the recipes? So these are the recipes. And if you're in the Voxer, I can send them in the Voxer. But these are the recipes for the blends that I do. The anti-anxious roller blend has Serenity, Adaptive, and Copaiba in it. That one's really, really good. Like if they're like having like a panic attack, or you're like feeling super overwhelmed, and you're like, that one's like a quick one to just like roll down the spine, roll in your hands, breathe in, and it'll just like, Copaiba will when it's rolled down your spine, it calms your nerves, your nervous system. Adaptive calms your stress hormone, and Serenity is a calming one as well. And then the refocus roller just has wild orange and peppermint in it. So that's a good one that, like, if you're getting super distracted or bored, like you're like, I have to get through this chapter, I have to finish this paper, it's really good to just like breathe in, especially if you're in a situation like at a library, out of school, and you can't reach for a diffuser, you're not home. This calming and centering roller is one that I made when he was really little. He was in school already, but I would roll it down his spine, starting at the base of his neck all the way to the bottom of his spine, so the top of his like a little booty crack. And every day I would roll that on him several times a day. We would do it when he would wake up. We would do it right before he went to school. We would do it right when he would get home from school. We would do it at night before bed. And I would also rub it on his feet. But it was the only thing that seemed to help him just like be calm, be able to use his words properly. He stuttered a lot when he was little because his brain was going 500 miles an hour, but his mouth could only go as fast as it could go. So I used cedarwood balance and vetiver in there for that one. And just, I used fractionate coconut oil because until I really started working with dōTERRA, I didn't know that there were all these other carrier oils. I had no idea. I had heard of them, but I didn't know what they were. So I thought so, but I mean, you can use any of them, but using essential oils with a carrier oil helps them absorb into your body for a longer amount of time. Did I say that right, Whitley?
Yep, that's right.
Okay, because I just learned that from you.
Yep. And another thing, like with smells, this is what I learned this morning on this podcast, which I probably should have already known this, but I guess I relearned it because I know when you smell something, it goes up right into your olfactory sensor. And that is right next to your hypothalamus. I did not know the word hypothalamus. Sydney's probably like, dude, I do. But your hypothalamus is like your control center. Okay. That's what's going to tell your brain of what you're thinking, and your thoughts come from feelings. So if you smell something like peppermint and wild orange, like this refocus blend, when you smell that, it goes to your hypothalamus, and your hypothalamus is, that smell is, hey, we're okay, we're energized, we're focused, we're going. And that's why essential oils work so well, is because they are aromatherapy. And then, so that's one way. You don't have to ingest them. Smelling them is really great, but when you do apply it onto your skin with the carrier oil, like Veronica just mentioned, the carrier oil takes it into your skin, further into your bloodstream, and within 20 minutes, it's absorbed into your entire bloodstream. So it's a really good way to pivot and to reach for a plant-based medicine instead of a prescription that has a bunch of side effects and addictive properties. So
yeah. Can you go to the next one?
Yep.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. So like Sydney was just saying, it takes 22 seconds for the molecules to reach your brain, 2 minutes, and they will be in your bloodstream, 20 minutes, and it will affect every cell in your body. That's pretty powerful, because even a prescription drug, they'll be like, give it like 45 minutes to work. So this already works faster. So this
works on the cellular level, like it says right there, it affects your cells, whereas prescriptions, you need to take them and ingest them, and then they have to be absorbed and broken down in your gut in order for it to get into your blood system. And that's why it takes so much longer. But like, why would you not try an essential oil that's going to be in your body and affecting your cells like in 20 minutes, right?
Yeah,
I love that.
exactly. So this capsule, I came up with I did some research. I did a lot of research. And then I was just like, kind of just like going off of my oils. And like I said, my daughter is, sometimes I look at her and I'm like, that's what a squirrel on heroin would be. That's what it would look like. It would look like her. I was like, she's like, and I feel like puberty and like, you know, going through all the girly things, like I was like, whoa, where did my calm child go? So, and she's just like all over the place all the time. We just kind of like match each other's energy, and she super fits in with like all of her aunts, because there's one sister and I, where my mom, and she can attest to this, she'll be like, well, which one of you is louder today? Like, we're both like right there. So I was going over my oils, and I was like thinking, I'm like, what would help her? Because I know that basil is great for ADD, And I know lemon is a great one also, but I felt like there was something else that I was like, there's something else that she needs. So I was going through 2 books that I use all the time are my Elements of Emotion and then the Modern Essentials book. So I was just going through them like hand in hand, and I came across DDR Prime. Like it popped in my head because I knew that it was good on for your brain cells. I know I've read a lot of cases where people with like cancer have been on DDR Prime, and it's like helped with like the cell structure, regrowth and everything. So I tried it. So the first couple of times I gave it to her, I only started with a couple of drops of each. And then I just kind of like increased them as I went just to see. And I was just like watching her to see like where like that sweet spot was for how many drops I did in a capsule. So I do 4 drops of fractionated coconut oil. She has a pretty sensitive stomach, so I didn't want all those oils to like, and she doesn't, and she takes it before she goes to school, and sometimes she doesn't eat breakfast. And so I didn't want it to like upset her stomach too much. I do 4 drops of DDR Prime, 4 drops of basil, and 3 drops of lemon. And she told me, she came home one day, she's like, Mom, that it works so good. She goes, I now can sit in class, and she's like, I don't interrupt my teachers. I don't talk over my teachers because I cannot even tell you how many emails and phone calls I get. Natalie was interrupting today. Natalie was talking too much. Natalie, and I was like, I don't know what you want me to do. Like, I can't duct tape her at school. I can't duct tape her mouth shut. Like, you know, she's 13 years old. She has a lot to say. So, and I mean, I try to be like, you know, when the teacher's talking, be respectful. But she's like, and then there was one day that she forgot to take it. She was in a rush, she was running late, and she was running out the door, and she forgot to take it. And she told me, she's like, Mom, she goes, there's a huge difference. She goes, when I do take it, she goes, I can sit there and be patient enough to listen for the teacher to stop talking and raise my hand before I say something. So, and I was like, good, but she's noticing, because she like was like, I'm not taking that. And I was like, I'm putting it in a capsule, you swallow it. And she's still she's like, it doesn't taste very good. And I was like, but it's helping you, and it's going to be better than any medication would do for you that would give you 10,000 other side effects. I have so many people that tell me, oh, well, then when my kids come home, I have to give them medicine again. And then they're like, you know, and it's almost like they're on a high, and then they drop down from it when they're off their medication. And then that's what I hear time and time again, that's what the parents don't like about the ADD and ADHD medications. And here, there's no side effects. It's literally all plant-based. You could literally probably not go out your front door, but somewhere in the world, find all these plants that these oils are made from. That's what dōTERRA does. They just gather it up and, you know, go through the process of making it into an oil for us. So, and all these things are at your fingertips. So,
Can I interrupt you, Veronica, really quick?
Go ahead.
That's what I love so much about dōTERRA is they've done all of the work for us. All we need to do is do a little bit of research for ourselves. Like you have, Veronica, okay, like what does help Natalie for her ADD, ADHD? What helps Wild Bill fall asleep at night? Because he literally hates sleeping so much in the entire world. Like his least favorite thing to do. He has so much better things to do than sleep. But that's what's so cool about dōTERRA is they have the adaptive soft gels. They have this DDR Prime super focus capsule that we just need to learn about and start taking advantage of. So literally like holistic medicine and plant medicine is so accessible and so affordable now compared to what we used to have to do 10, 15, 16 years ago, like you, Veronica. Anyways, that's all I have to say.
I love that. So I've never taken, I love DDR Prime. It also comes in a capsule. It comes in the oil though as well. So that's why it says that she's doing the 4 drops. But I've never taken fractionated coconut oil. in a capsule. So what was the research that you found with the fractionated coconut oil?
There really wasn't a lot, honestly. It's what I had.
Oh, okay.
It's like,
Eden, you're muted.
muted.
Are you talking?
Oh,
Yeah, sorry. I thought I unmuted myself. Kelsey has talked about it before, which is super cool. Okay, have you ever heard anyone say, like, when you're adding essential oils to your bath, to do it with like an Epsom salt or like baking soda or something, so that the essential oils have something to cling on to? So Kelsey talked about it with like a veggie capsule. It's good to add some sort of fat to it so that the oils can cling onto it and go into your stomach to be absorbed into your body better. So not that it's going to hurt you if you don't. So I think Kelsey adds avocado oil. Sometimes I've done that before. Sometimes when you take veggie caps, like, not to be gross, but you can like burp it up a little bit. You're like, oh yeah, I taste what I just took in my veggie cap a little bit. So when you add a fat to it, you don't burp it up as much because it's like absorbed into that fatty oil and can like absorb into your stomach better. So that's what I've learned from that.
That's cool. I want to do more research about that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
yeah, I knew I had heard, and now that you remind me, yeah, it was Kelsey was talking about it. I was like, oh, I should add. I just knew that I needed to add something else, but I'm super like spacey and flighty too. Like, I hear a part of something and I'm like, yeah, I remember that, but I don't remember why I should do it, but I'm just going to do it anyways. So that's just kind of
great,
how I
though.
roll
Like, that's why
sometimes.
we have our community, because it's like we're all the same. Like Kelsey, oh yeah, it was Kelsey that said that. And so, and then you're giving this information, so now I can take it and I can go look and say, hey, is this going to work for me? So I hope everyone that's listening to this is being like, okay, she had basil in here. I'm going to go look up basil and see how that would help with my ADD. I love that. Do you want me to go to the next slide?
I was just gonna also say, you can, if you have little kids, also really tiny ones that aren't at a point where they can swallow a capsule, you can make it into a roller and roll it down their spine and on the bottoms of their feet as well.
I sometimes have my kids, oh, sorry. I put it in
You
water.
can go
If
to
it's
the
not,
next one.
if it's not a gross tasting oil, put it in a stainless steel cup with either a stainless steel straw or like the silicone straw. Like my little baby, he was having an allergic reaction, and I put lemon and lavender in there. And that's another way you can have your baby or child ingest an oil if you want them to ingest it, if it's not so gross.
My youngest, my 6-year-old Joey, that I've actually talked a lot about last week, he has a stainless steel water bottle he takes to school, and every morning he has to have lemon oil in it to school. And he's like, I have to have my lemon, Mom. And I was like, and so he got a bigger water bottle, because I only do like 1 or 2 drops in the bottle he has now. And he's like, I need like 8 drops. And I was like, no, you don't. I was like a little goes a long way, buddy. So, and then another thing that ADD, ADHD people on the spectrum tend to really struggle with is sleep. My son, when he was a baby, he slept really well when he was a baby, but then he probably hit about 7 years old, and then he's just stopped sleeping through the night forever. And then he's still like, he at least stays in his bed now, but because you guys are my community, that's a very recent thing. It's a very recent thing. He did not use it. He used to come into our bed, and finally I'm like, you're as big as our bed. You cannot come in here anymore. I was like, you have to stay in your bed. So, and he has trouble. So I make sure I came across this recipe. Somebody had been talking about them, and someone was talking about how much Bedivere was so great for sleeping. And I had a thought to add copaiba to it one night. I do 5 drops of copaiba and 2 drops of vetiver. I put that in their diffuser. The first night I did it, people were asleep within like 10 minutes, and they were like comatose. They were gone. Like, if there was a fire, I was like, we would have had to save all of them. I was like, it was amazing. I was like, this is like liquid tranquilizers. I was like, I put it in their diffuser every night. I put it in everyone's diffuser, and they're like, Mom, it smells like dirt in my room. I was like, you'll be fine. Just pretend you're camping. It's fine. So, and they've gotten kind of used to it now. But I had actually talked about it on my live, I think, when Joey, we just found out he has asthma. And so I did this, but then I added breathe into it, and that really helped him. It helped him sleep, but it also kept the air so his lungs were okay for the night too. So I swear by this blend. So but I do love that copaiba, just like it calms the nervous system down. I when any of my kids are like super like freaking out, I actually grab my copaiba touch and I rub it on their feet and down their spine, especially the little ones, because like little kids we've talked about, they can't verbalize what they need. We're just like, why are you freaking out? And, you know, they probably don't even know why they're freaking out either. They just know that something's wrong. And, you know, they can't tell us. So I do like the copaiba for that. And I actually, Whitley, maybe you know this. Why is Vetiver so thick? It takes me forever to get a drop out of the bottle.
That is just the way that Vevitor is. I bet
It
Sydney has a
is.
way better answer than I do, but
Wait, I have the best hack for the vetiver though. Like,
yeah, you
Oh,
do.
okay.
I actually have it right there. I'm not gonna grab it. Yes, I am. 1 second. I'm grabbing it.
I mean, I know that you can get, and I'm sure maybe even, do you have like the screw off one and like you have the dropper now?
Yes. So look, I
Oh, that's a good idea.
replaced, oh my little girls, I replaced the top with a dropper. So now I
Oh.
just rub it
Yeah,
out.
I need to do that because my husband did it one night while I was at dance with my daughter. And he's like, babe, it took me like 10 minutes to get one drop out. I was like, I know, I'm sorry.
They even buy those tops like on Amazon. You can get a dropper for even like a 10 milliliter roller bottle. So I made like a cellulite blend just because I wanted to try it out and see if it works. And it has a little dropper thing. So it's just like another way you can repurpose your empty roller bottles. Like instead of buying new ones, just buy a dropper thing if you need the dropper, but put your blends in old oil bottles.
Yeah, that's a really good tip. I actually love, now that I know that using a carrier oil is actually better when you're using oils. My deep blue, all those oils that I would use regularly, I just already have made in a roller. And the kids will ask me now, they're like, should I use a roller or the oil straight, Mom? Because they've heard me talk about the difference. So, and I tell them usually if we're putting them in the diffuser, you use them straight, but to go check for a roller first, because some of the things I haven't made into a roller that they'll need. But I carry a deep blue roller with me in my bag all the time, because if I feel I'm prone to migraines, I don't know, I never used to be, but then like I had children and they're just like, I don't know. So I always carry a deep blue roller, because for me personally, a deep blue will kick a headache faster than a peppermint will. So, but that's basically all I have about this class. I have a lot more ideas for other classes about them and things that I've done. I have like 3 pages of classes I want to do.
Can I just add something real quick before we
go ahead.
get off? I just wanted to say that I love how you advocate for your children. Like, it is so cool and so inspiring. And I think in today's world, as mothers, we forget that we actually get to call the shots. You know, how many times do you hear people say like, oh, my doctor won't let me, like in pregnancy, my doctor won't let me go past so-and-so weeks, or, oh, my teacher said I have to. And I'm always like, wait, you're the boss, you're in charge. And I think that it's so inspiring to learn about these things and remember that we are in charge, and God, like, not to get spiritual, but in my belief system, I believe that God gave our children to us specifically. It wasn't like, oh, we're handing out all of these little souls and whoever gets them. It's like he knew exactly who their mother was supposed to be. And then he gave each mother motherly intuition. And through the years, we've forgotten that we have that, and that, you know, we need a doctor, or we need someone to tell us that this is okay or what we need to do. But that motherly intuition is a superpower that is God given, and we all have it. And we need to lean into it and listen to it. So when the doctors, you know, told you your son's never going to do this, never going to do this, never going to do this, and you were like, no. And you follow that motherly intuition and saying, I'm going to advocate for my child right now. And obviously, sometimes there are things where we need to listen to doctors, or we need to listen to experts in certain fields. But when that motherly intuition comes knocking, listen to it, because it is God given, and no one knows better what to do for your child than you. No one. So
I just
that's
got
just like my
chills.
2 cents.
I love that. Me too.
Yeah, my mom is on here, and she is like, she taught me to advocate for my kids, because I'm the oldest of 7. So 6 girls. I know my mom's tired, but I remember all my siblings are way younger than me because I am adopted, and I have one sister who's deaf, and then, you know, the list, and one that's diabetic. The list goes on, but she was always like, no, we're not doing that. And I just remember, and just when we were in the emergency room with Joey, she was like up with me via text because she couldn't be with me. And I was telling her what the doctors were saying, and she was like, no, you're not doing that. You tell them this. And I'm like, okay, Mom. So, and then I did, because I had to decline some things, but, and then the doctor wasn't very happy with me, but I was like, whatever, I'm in charge, not you.
There's power in motherhood. I love it. It doesn't stop. Like when you're 30, 40, 50, 60, your mom's still going to be like, excuse me,
Yeah,
I'm going to stop this.
exactly. Yeah.
Thank you
Okay.
so much, Veronica, and for like taking